Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with the Chance of Meeples. Today on the channel, we are taking a look at Belratti. This is a game all about art. Is this art or can it go? A cooperative party game in which players are trying to match up certain art cards with certain themes. And you got to work together to figure out which ones match up and which ones are forgeries from Belratti. Let me show you how this plays in the radar overview. My final forecast coming up shortly. Cue the thunder. So the radar overview for Belratti looks something like this. This is a cooperative game in which a team of museum directors and painters are trying to match up paintings with certain themes before Belratti gets 6 cards. I shouldn't say before Belratti gets 6 cards. The game ends when 6 forgeries go over to Belratti, and then you count up how many cards you matched up in the game, and depending on how many you actually did match up will reflect on how well you did. You need at least 15 to say you beat the game, and then depending on how high or how much higher than 15 you get, or how much lower than 15 you get, will reflect on your kind of how well you did. But how does this work? Well, each round there will be painters and museum directors. Museum directors will discuss how many cards they want to be put into the middle to match 2 paintings. Because at the start of each round, museum directors take the top 2 cards off of this stack of a lot of painting cards, and they then tell the painters how many cards the painting group needs to add. Okay, so the number has to be between 3 and 7, and so let's just say they say the museum directors team, or not team, but those playing the museum directors that round say they need 4 cards. Then the painters, they discuss how many they can put in to match this theme. They can't say, oh, I have one that has a boat, so I'm going to put at least 1 in. They can't say that. They can just say, oh, you know what, I could put about 3, or I could put about 1, or I could put 2, or whatever they can. They discuss that. And then so they will then put as many cards, this team, the painting team, puts as many cards as the director said. I will also say there are some special powers. So if all of a sudden the painters are like, we can't really do any of them, we don't really have any cards, they can use this power to discard as many cards as they want and redraw to their hand limit. Or they could say, you know what, let's put a 5th card in because one of them has a really good card will match one of these themes. So you could do that or subtract it to 3. But as soon as the painters put in the required amount of cards, you always add 4 cards to the deck. And these are the forgeries that Belratti is trying to sneak into the museum. Museum directors will then shuffle these up. I'll move these to the side a little bit. So these are the 2 themes, a lighthouse on fire and a typewriter. And then the museum directors will then take the cards that were handed in by the painters, and they will start matching them up. Okay, and so let's do like this and like that. And this team will kind of talk, about the paintings. Whereas the painters, they can't say anything. They can't make any like gestures or nothing like that. So they just have to sit there and listen to the museum directors and how they are, talking this over. So, maybe the museum directors are like, you know what? There's a typewriter and you write things on there, and pencils, you write with that. So maybe that connects. And then maybe, they keep talking and they're like, well, letters are also written on like typewriter time, so that makes sense. The egg doesn't really go with either of these. The sword, not really. This is a lighter, obviously. Lighter makes fire. You got fire there. There's that. And you got a boat. You have a starfish. You got a compass. Kind of each of these could go with that. And so the museum directors, they just go with the boat. They go with the boat. At that point, they say, okay, this is what we have. And then they go in turn order with the painters, and the painters then say which cards they put in. And so this painter will say, well, you know what? I did, in fact, do the lighter because fire. So this is a point for the teams. And this also did the starfish because pink and pink. So they didn't get this. So that goes in the middle. That'll get discarded at the end of the round. And then this painter will say, well, I did, in fact, do the letter. And I did, in fact, do the pencil. So these would be accurate. But then you look at this. Neither of the painters put this in. So this was a forgery for Belratti. So this goes into that pile. The game ends as soon as 6 cards are in that pile. And then you count up how many paintings you matched up. I will say, if the museum director's team matches up the correct painting but assigns it to the wrong theme, that gets discarded as well. So you don't lose out picking like a forgery in that regard, but you don't get it as a point for your team. I said that you always put 4 cards in at the start, like when Belratti adds his forgeries. You can flip this over to only do 3. If you don't like the themes, the directors don't like the themes at the beginning, they can activate this to discard the 2 themes to get 2 brand new ones. And then when they're deciding which cards or assigning the cards, they can ask about a specific card. And the painters will then say either yes, they put it in, or no, they did not. You can get these back if you have a perfect round and you get that many. So in this case, museum director said 4 cards needed to be put in. If they would have picked the exact 4 cards, then this would get flipped over and you could activate it again. So that's how you play the game. It ends when there's 6 cards on Belratti's side. Count up how many you have collected as a team, 15 or more, and you win. So there you have it. That is the radar overview for Belratti. Let's move on over now. Check out the final forecast. So the final forecast for Belratti, a game all about art, trying to figure out which are the art from the painting or from the painters and which are forgeries from Belratti himself. I'll say that I'd actually never heard about this game before Cosmos sent me a copy, and it was long listed for Spiel in 2019, winner of a la carte game award in 2019, winner of a Hippo Dice award, best party game, nominated in the Golden Geek Award in 2018. So a lot of praise for this game, all about art and trying to figure out which art cards connect with which theme. I'll speak on the art. The art is all right. Like, it's nothing. This ain't no Dixit art, that's for sure. But again, it's not bad. How does this play? What are my thoughts on the gameplay in general? I will say this: when I first played and read the rules, it says that the museum directors are supposed to tell the painters how many art cards they need to put in between 3 and 7. That's all it said. I thought, I was wondering if it's supposed to be how many art cards per theme or just in general. But to my understanding, it is just in general. So if you saw in the radar overview, there was an art theme of a typewriter and a lighthouse. The museum directors could said, I had it that they said 4, but they could say 7. And then collectively between those 2 themes, the painters have to put in 7 cards. Thing is, the painters can't talk about which theme they are putting their cards into. So I think that is an interesting thing. They can say, oh, you know what, I have like 2 good cards, maybe a 3rd one. But you don't know, as the painting team, you don't know which cards are matching up with which theme. And so that brings a little bit of tension, because if all the painters throw all their cards matching one theme, when the forgeries start coming out, some of them, those 4 forgery cards might line up with the other theme. And then it gives the museum directors a little bit of a not guessing game, but more to think about and more to mull over. Of course, there are the different the different Joker tiles, which will help the both painter team and the director team. But I enjoyed this game. I feel that this game can bring a bunch of tension. There's two things that I really enjoyed about this game. The tension that it brings as the rounds go on later and later, and the thing I think I like even more is the interaction after the round. Okay, so after the round, you're setting up for the next round, and that's when like the table livens up because people start asking like, hey, why did you put that card? Like in the radar overview, I showed that the one painter put pink starfish to represent or to attach to the theme of the typewriter because it was pink and the typewriter was pink. Whereas that could easily been correlated to the lighthouse, which they're both nautical themes. And so you have that situation where people might be connecting the paintings that they're throwing in, whether it's straight by color, whether it's by shape, whether it's by theme, whether it's what you use specific things for. Because obviously, in the example I gave, a pencil doesn't necessarily go with a typewriter, but they're both writing instruments or things to write with. So you have those conversations of like, why'd you put that down? You should have attached this to that theme. And so that brings some fun conversations and fun like interactions. And you get to know things. You get to learn some things about people and the people you play with and how their brains work. And I find that fascinating in this game. The other thing is the kind of the tension in the game, because the museum directors can ask for anywhere from 3 to 7 cards. And obviously, the less amount of cards, the less amount of potential points you can then gain that round. And the most recent play I did of this, it happened to be, there were 5 cards on that Belratti. So, we're sitting around the table, we play a 6-player game, and we're like, okay, well, if Belratti gets one more card this next round, the game's over. And then we count up our score. You need 15 to win. Officially, you need 15 to win, and this is a game you can always see if you can get a better and better score. But so we had to be like, you know what? We got to throw in 7 cards. So then the painters are sitting there like, we collectively have to put in 7 cards to do these 2 themes, and I don't know if I necessarily have cards that are like really specific, like the connections are strong, but you have that tension because if they get anything wrong, the game ends. So I like that kind of that arc of the game where Belratti, the forgeries start going on, on the game side, and then it just gets a little bit more tense and a little bit more exciting in the game. So I really did enjoy that. You can make this easier, harder. It says on the back, add 1 more card now in that Belratti phase, or add less cards in that Belratti phase. I found it when we played with our kids and friends, if you split kids up with parents so that because each round these go around the table, so you can kind of make the teams at the beginning, and then those teams they'll either all be the museum directors or they'll all be the painters each round. And so I found that worked out well. I don't think it necessarily shines at 3 players. You have to hold 18 cards in your hand, which is a lot of cards, especially if you're playing with younger kids. I think on the back of the box, what does it say? Ages 8 and up. Kids holding 18 cards, that might be a challenge for them. So I definitely think it shines at that, 5, 6, 7 player count. 4 is all right as well, but the higher it goes, the more excitement. I don't know if that's the correct word I'm thinking of, but higher player count, better. I like these Joker tiles. You use them, you want to use them all the time, but in order for you to get them back, you have to strategically then you work as the museum director, be like, oh, you want the refresh hand, Joker tile back? Well, then the next round, the museum director has to ask for 3 cards. And then if you get a perfect round, then you get it back. Whereas, the one where Belratti has 1 less card, you use it. The next time to get it back, you have to have a perfect round of 7 cards, which could be challenging that in itself. But I enjoyed this game. The artwork is all right. It's nothing special, but I think this is a fun party cooperative game. I'm not the biggest fan of cooperative games, but this one, I think what made me like it being a cooperative game is those conversations after, and you get to find out from your friends and family and those at the table how they're correlating specific things together, whether it's the theme or the color or whatnot. So I'm gonna give Belratti a 70% chance meeples. I think it was fun. I enjoyed it. So if you're a fan of art and cooperative games and things of such, you may want to check out Belratti. My name is Brent. Until next time, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.